All right, I am here with the Emmett Plant. How you doing, man?
I'm great, brother. Cheers. Got my Superman smoothie here ready to go.
Excellent. Emmett is the plant-based Superman guru. I just got off a call with him to find out more about the program, and I'm psyched to share this with my audience. And seems like you're up to a lot of cool stuff. First and foremost, for those who don't know who you are, why don't you share your brief overview of what plant-based Superman is and what else you want to share with anybody else?
Hey, brother. Yeah, thanks. Firstly, thanks for having me on. And if you're wondering what I'm doing down here, I'm actually playing with my little plant-based super dog. He's not really plant-based, but my super dog Marley. So he may be jumping up and trying to get a slice of the attention here as well. And that's what's going on here, man. I'm on single daddy duties. My fiance's away in Sweden, so I'm looking after the puppy, and he's an absolute nutcase. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just playing with my dog down here, keeping him busy while I'm on the call. And to give you a little snapshot of who I am, what I do, what the Plant-Based Superman's all about. Basically, since I was a kid, man, I was always into sports, studying sports science, playing Australian football at like state level when I was younger. Been in personal training for over 10 years. And in 2016, before I even get to that part of the story, I guess when I grew up, I was eating heaps of meat. I've probably eaten over 1,000 chickens in my lifetime. And I was eating like 3 or 4 whole chickens a week, and I was eating a very meat-based diet, and that's what people told me I needed to do when I was in exercise and sports science, and when I was training and performing. So that's what I did, and I was modeling around the world as well. So I looked good, I was training good, but on the inside, and I guess in terms of my actual health, I wasn't really the healthiest I could have been, and I was in New York to get to the crunch and the transformation from meat-based Emmett to plant-based Emmett. I was modeling in New York, and I was about to eat like a chicken salad from like a buffet and one of those Whole Foods or whatever you got over there. And I looked at this chicken. I was like, where the fuck did this thing come from? Like, what is this? It made me sick, like thinking about where it actually came from, and that I didn't know where it came from. And it was like some dead animal that could have been messed up from all sorts of human handling and human cruelty and things like that. And I just didn't really trust it. I didn't feel it, but that was the real spiritual shift, I guess, from, being meat-based to switching to plants, was that one moment there when I was like, wondering what I was actually putting in my body. And that led me to go down the path of exploring the plant-based nutrition and looking into people like Rich Roll. And, I primarily got into the plant-based nutrition for performance and for longevity and for my personal health. But obviously the environment, animal cruelty, and everything else that's attached to it is another massive bonus and a massive win for everyone on the planet. And then to tie that into how I became the plant-based Superman and what the movement's all about. Basically, when I switched to plants, I felt amazing, superhuman energy boost, clarity. I was feeling great, but I lost heaps of weight because I didn't know how to eat plants right. And I wasn't eating enough sort of energy, enough calories. So I lost about 5 or 6 kilos. And for me, being 83 kilos before and then being super lean and strong, losing weight was actually a bad thing, compared to some people who want to lose weight. So I was the lightest that I'd been since I was probably like 16. And I turned into a skinny, weak vegan dude. And I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, damn, this is not how I'm going to actually promote the plant-based movement. Like no one wants to be some skinny, weak vegan dude. So that's when I decided to create the Plant-Based Superman movement, the path, the system, and everything that has come to fruition and reality today is basically from my own struggles with building a Superman body on plants, and then using my experience to put together this movement and this system to transform average men into Supermen.
Love that. So how do you go from the skinny, the skinny wimpy guy to a plant-based Superman? What's missing beyond, or how do you eat plant-based stuff in a way that actually you can build muscle and have energy and longevity in that sense?
Yeah, good question. So basically, the first tip would be your calories. So making sure that you're eating enough calories, and calories is basically just a form of energy. So plants don't have a lot of calories. You know what I mean? Like lettuce, spinach, kale. Like most of the plants that you think about when you're eating vegan or plant-based, they don't have a lot of energy. They got a lot of micronutrients, but not a lot of macronutrients. So tip number one would be making sure you're eating enough to fuel your training and to fuel your life. And then number two would be sort of the macronutrient ratio. So eating a pretty high. I eat like 60% carbohydrates, 20% protein, 20% fat. So making sure that I'm getting whole grains like oats and brown rice and quinoa and bread and things like that, like heaps of whole grains is probably the second tip. Making sure you're eating a high carbohydrate diet. And this could go so deep, this answer, but I'll try and keep it semi-surface level, just so we can get through a bit more stuff. But the other one would also be the protein intake. So going into, where to find protein from plants. And yes, there is protein in plants, but you just have to be a lot more aware of what protein equals. So before, protein equals meat equals protein. And now that I've switched to plant-based, it's more like protein equals whole grains and legumes, or protein equals whole grains and nuts and seeds, So putting those things together means that you can actually get a lot of protein from your plant-based diet. And the other thing I'd probably recommend as well is getting on the Superman smoothies, where you can load this bad boy up with some plant-based protein, peanut butter, oats, bananas, whatever you need, man. You have one of these in the morning and you just fucking fired up and ready to take on any challenge in life.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you, what does a typical day look like for you as far as what you're eating and working out for that matter? Yeah.
So at the moment, training for like an Ironman and still training with the PBS team with our Superman program. So I'm probably training like 3 or 4 hours a day. And my typical morning would be like at the moment I'm looking after Marley. So I'm going out for like 4+ hours of walking / running with him.
Yeah.
But without him, when my partner's here, a typical day would be wake up, go to the gym, smash out my workout, come back, have my Superman smoothie, jump into the laptop land and jump into the team, coach the team, working on the PBS movement. And then I'd do another session sort of in the afternoon. And I guess my food would be Superman smoothie in the morning. Then like lunch would be something like, rice and beans or a chickpea curry or a stir fry, for an example. They're 3 sort of go-tos I have pretty much every week. And then at dinner time would be something sort of similar like that, I guess. So does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, for the most part. What do you do for snacking? Do you snack at all?
Yeah. Fuck yeah, snack, man. I always snack. The problem for me, mate, is not not trying not to eat. The problem for me is actually eating enough. So, mate, for snacking, I've got heaps of fruit over there. Got nuts and seeds. Got avocado and toast. Things like that, I guess. Hummus and crackers, hummus and carrots, and just smoothies, man. I guess like I probably end up having maybe 2 of these a day, just sort of for convenience and for nutrition. As I said, when you're training like a Superman, bro, like I'm burning thousands of calories a day. So I actually aim to be eating about 3,000 to 4,000. And when I'm on heavy endurance, a heavy endurance cycle, then I'm eating over 4,000 calories a day.
That's a lot of legumes.
That's a lot of fucking plants, bro. I
know. What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have with eating plant-based? Plant-based diet.
Good question. That I only eat lettuce.
Okay.
That I only eat like fucking green leafy vegetables,
Yeah, I mean, that was a surprise for me as I've started to shift my diet. I've been eating more plant-based in the last few years, and I didn't realize that there were, plant-based milk, plant-based butter, plant-based cheese, plant-based, all the stuff that you would normally eat anyway, which means, I can still have a pizza. I can still have, this, that, or whatever. And that was a big eye opener for me. I think most people think of a diet as some type of depravity. Like I'm going to be this alternate version of myself for as long as I possibly can until I just fucking throw in the towel and then I'm back to my old habits. And when you realize that, plant-based, like you can actually eat what you want and feel like you're cheating and feel like you're having what you want to eat, but it's still healthy. I mean, obviously you can still, go overboard. You could eat, sweet rolls all day and that's probably not going to be beneficial to your health. But
yeah, I think the other one I'll jump in there as well is also understanding that you can still eat, you can still have like your breakfast. You can still do like pancakes or tofu scramble. You can still do like tofu scramble. You can still do whatever you usually have for breakfast without the animal products. You can still do whatever you want for lunch. You can still do burgers if you want for lunch. You can still do curries for dinner. You can still do stir fries. You can still do all these dishes that even a roast, you can do like amazing roast bowls, like roast veggie bowls, and put mushrooms instead. You know, you can still do all these amazing dishes that you'd be eating meat-based, but you just substitute it with plants, and it tastes even better. It's sort of like lentil bolognese, man. You know what I mean? Like everything can be substituted with plants, and you can make it taste good. And I guess that's the other common misconception as well, is that you know, eating plant-based doesn't taste good, or it's, you know, it's bland, or it's nothing. You can't eat all these things, you know. So it's that's the other misconception, I think.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I got to meet who now is a really good friend of mine. She's a vegan chef, and she made some food for me. She had a restaurant out in Hawaii, and I, you know, she'd cooked some food for me, and I'm like, this is like bursting with flavor and filling and delicious. I'm like, oh, I mean, if I'm eating this, I could be vegan, I could be plant-based. I mean, I'm from Midwest America, where we love our barbecue and our meats and all that. And I still like eating that stuff, but I've noticed a huge, what's that?
How'd you feel after eating the plant-based dish compared to eating a meat-based dish?
Oh, that's the other thing. You don't feel bloated. You don't feel sluggish. You don't feel, you know, a burst of energy and then crash. Like it had a piece of hair fly in my mouth. I don't know where that came from.
Is that from the chicken you just ate before, mate? Chicken feather.
But you know, as I've shifted my diet more to the plant-based stuff, it's totally changed how I feel on the inside, and you could feel it. It's dramatic. And again, it's not like you're changing the item that you're eating. You're changing the source of the item that you're eating. It could be the same item. Pizza is pizza. You can eat a really healthy, shitty pizza, or you can have more of a plant-based pizza, and it's not as heavy. It doesn't slow you down. It doesn't whatever. So, and you're right. And it tastes delicious. Like, so that's, I would agree with you. I think those are probably the two biggest misconceptions. I'm curious a little bit about your background, like before you had the chicken episode, like where did you grow up? You're from Australia, right?
Yeah.
What city?
I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, so on the west coast, and grew up sort of super into sport, playing Australian football, which led me into studying exercise and sports science at university or college in America. And then I was just into personal training and always into sort of, you know, training and things. And then I won like a modeling contest competition, and went to America, and I was traveling around America, and then like a scout signed me up to Wilhelmina, which is a modeling agency in New York, Miami, and LA. So I was living in...
I have to interrupt you because most people are going to be listening to this and not watching the video, and they are totally missing out. You're a good looking dude. I have a very staunch heterosexual track record. I just want to make that very clear, but I know a good looking guy when I see one, and you're a good looking dude.
I think you're pretty good looking too, mate.
Thanks, man. Wow, I'm feeling the love across the oceans.
Once we get you in the Superman program, bro, watch out. Watch out, world. Peter's on the prowl. That's looking like a Superman. Here we go.
That's the intent. So, but what were your eating habits growing up? Were your parents, you know, disciplined? Did they get good food, or was it
heavy meat based, bro? My dad said the only green thing I'll eat is a moldy steak or mold on steak or some shit, you know, like. So there you go. My dad was heavily against plants. And when I was younger, from all the research I did when I was studying in college and things, I'll say college because Americans understand what that means. Yes. But when I was in college, you know, all of the papers, all the nutrition, everything I was studying was, you need to be eating this much chicken. You need to be eating this much rice. Like all I used to eat when I was a kid was chicken and rice, bro. Like chicken and rice, steak and pasta, you know, spaghetti bolognese. Like, you know, I was heavy meat based, bro. Like, that's all I honestly didn't eat. I hated salads when I was younger. So it's pretty funny snapshot the comparison to where I am now, being only plant-based, and my parents tripping out going, holy shit, who is this guy? You know? So yeah, I guess that's sort of my brief sort of journey.
Yeah. What do they think of what you're doing now? Is your dad eating more greens, or is he still in his... mold
He is.
habits.
He is, man. Yeah, he joined. We had an 84-day VIP program, 84-day system that we first launched, and he jumped into that, and he started having some more smoothies, and he's sort of lost about 12, 14 kilos, I think, as well, since switching up his diet and switching up his lifestyle. So that's really cool. And I guess, and my mum and my sister's super supportive, and my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, has joined the VIP coaching program as well. So he was a super heavy meat-based dude, and now he switched to plants as well. So I guess it's really cool leading by your actions, and sort of seeing people understand, oh shit, like if Emmett studies this shit, and if Emmett's fucking eating more plants, like, it must be beneficial, and
Right.
yeah, the biggest reason, I guess this sort of ties into your question as well, but the biggest reason why I went plant-based is because my granddad died of a heart attack. My uncles had multiple sort of, heart surgeries and heart attacks and things. And we've got sort of a family history of heart disease and heart attacks and things. So I believe that is largely due to your diet, and obviously meat-based products and animal-based products have been largely linked to heart disease and cancer and all these illnesses. So that's a large reason why I also have gone fully plant-based, and why I'm promoting the plant-based nutrition to my family and friends and to the world, man, because, if you just eat more plants, less animal products, and reduce your risk greatly of having a heart attack or cancer or any of these other sort of illnesses that can be prevented, then why wouldn't you?
100%, dude. I think that, the world hasn't caught up yet. It's starting to, like, you're starting to see massive trend towards plant-based eating here in the States anyway. I would assume it's the same over there, but you're starting to see celebrities promote it. You see Beyonce taking a big bite of a pizza going, delicious vegan pizza. You see NFL players that are pure plant-based. One thing I have noticed, we talked about this on our call previously, but the difference between a vegan and somebody who's plant-based, it's like there's such a emotional charge behind the word veganism that I think that's turned some people off. But plant-based seems to be more acceptable. It seems like people are, it's a little bit more approachable. And everybody that I've talked to who is quote unquote plant-based seems to be much more, they're not militant. Whereas some vegans I know are great and they're wonderful and they're not militant, but some vegans I know are that more militant, like, environmentally driven, and you're going to hell if you have a leather belt on or something or whatever. And, I get it, but nobody wants to be, choked into a different lifestyle choice. So,
No, man, 100%.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about pre this call was basically, I guess, maybe a rebranding of yourself, or really creating or choosing a new identity. So your name isn't Emmett Plant, believe it or not. The plant-based guy's name is not Plant. I'm curious to know sort of the backstory and what your real name is, and how you got to that point where, like, I'm going to fucking create this whole new identity.
Yeah, man. Well, basically, I can start off by saying that when I was younger, I've always had this vision and always had these dreams of changing the world and basically making a massive impact and putting my dent in the universe and all these things, right? And I was traveling the world modeling and living this fucking dream life. Or people were like, "Oh, you living the dream, man?" And I was like, I wasn't doing shit, man. I was floating around the world, like having fun, but I wasn't really making the impact that I wanted to make. And I found there was a huge gap between my expectations, or between my vision of who I wanted to become and the impact I wanted to have, and what my actions and what my actual behaviors and my habits and what my actual results were. You know what I mean? So I spent the first 25 years of my life basically pretending like I was going to change the world, pretending like I was going to take massive action, and pretending like I was going to really push myself to become the greatest version of myself. And basically, I wasn't doing shit, man. I was just fucking wasting my life away, and going in circles. And then in 2016, I should say, I ruptured my Achilles tendon and basically ripped my Achilles tendon out of my heel bone. And I was out, man. I was doing it snowboarding, and it was fucked, right? Like, basically I was fully out of action, and the doctors told me I'd never walk again, never run again, never, be an athlete or whatever. And
Wow.
I was like, fuck that shit, man. I'm coming back. And that was the darkest one of the darkest moments of my life, was going through the identity crisis of always being the fit dude, the athlete, the model around the world or whatever. And then, being in a moon boot and being out of action for like a year really spun me out mentally. And that's where I got really deep into neuroscience and visualization and recreating identities and habits, and basically reprogramming your brain, subconscious programming, conscious programming, things like that. And that's what sort of sparked me to recreate myself and to really take a look at who I was, my actions and behaviors, and how I could, reinvent myself, and then I met my beautiful fiance as well, which is another catalyst to the transformation of the plant-based Superman and myself today. So since meeting her, I totally switched like my whole mindset around, floating around the world, being the single dude, living the fucking bachelor life, to being a family man, to having a fiance. And I proposed to her after a year of being together, because I just knew she was the woman of my dreams, and she is what I needed in my life to give me that, sort of stability, purpose, and drive, of what it means to sort of have a partner and to be doing it for someone else, which I think is another massive motivating factor. If anyone's looking at motivation, is to stop doing it for yourself and do it for someone else. So that was another really massive spark. And then I guess the reason why I created Emmett Plant, and the reason why I created the Plant-Based Superman, is like creating like an alter ego, or creating like a new identity that has all of the values and the beliefs and the habits and the routines and the behaviors and the identity and the mindset that you want to have. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't have done what I've done today if I didn't create this new identity and these new routines and new habits and new ways of showing up in the world. And there's another great book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman, I believe, which really goes into this. And he's a world-class sort of performance coach. And he talks about how to use the alter ego effect when, like, say performers like Beyonce, like her name's not Beyonce, or like, I think her name was like Foxy Storm or some shit before, like all these sort of performers and athletes and things. I think like there's another NFL player like who's like the Beast or Beast Mode, or whatever, like, you know what I mean? So yeah. It was just a way for me to create a new identity, a new persona, so that I could actually show up in the world and do the shit that I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I think it speaks to a core reason why some people are able to lose the weight and get in the shape that they ultimately desire to, and why some people don't. Let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of nutrition and fitness hacks will just say, like, you hear this all the time, eat less, move more. Come on, it's not that hard. It's simple. And if it were that simple, obviously we'd all be doing it. So the reason why most of us aren't doing it is because we do have an identity crisis in our head of, well, maybe I'm not worth it, or, people won't love me, or, a lot of women have, were violated. And so out of protection, they'll eat and become unattractive. Or, you see guys in the weight room that are huge because they were picked on when they were kids. And so there's that inner, belief system and operating system that we talked about that is so crucial to getting into the best shape of your life. Let's talk about that for a second. What do you see as the core sort of principles to the mindset shift that somebody needs to take, or walk us through how you would coach somebody to shift into more of a Superman mindset?
Yeah, great question, man. So basically, the first step of our sort of Superman path and becoming a Superman is actually basically getting real with yourself and getting clear on the facts. You know what I mean? So awareness is number one. So getting aware of what the habits are that aren't serving you, writing down a list of your habits, the habits that are good, habits that are bad, habits that are neutral, and taking like an inventory check on where exactly you're at now, because if you're not clear on exactly where you're at, then you've got no idea where you started, and you can't actually develop a plan to get to where you want to be. And then the second step, sort of like with our little coaching call before, mate, basically getting clear on the facts and getting clear of where you're at and what's driving you to actually change, and holding on to that, so that when you do embark on this journey, when shit gets tough, which it will, you've got that motivating factor of, I never want to get back to X. I never want to get back to being that dude, you know, whatever it is that you're going for, moving away from. Step number 2 would be having a clear identity, or a clear sort of a clear picture of exactly who you want to become, and getting really specific with it, not just being like fit, strong, feel good. You know, it's like, I want to look like this guy. I want to basically, you know, be able to lift this amount of weight. I want to get to this number on the deadlift, squats, whatever. Having numbers and getting real with the facts is one of the biggest problems that people face. Is they go for like a goal, or like a very subjective goal, which is, you know, not really measurable. So having measurable goals, measurable targets enables you to get fucking real with the facts, so that when you don't feel good, you can look at the numbers and be like, shit, I'm getting stronger. You can look at the numbers and be like, shit, I'm losing weight. Shit, I'm, you know, getting fitter, whatever it is. You know, having the facts takes out the emotion from the journey, because there's going to be highs and lows, good and bad. And it's not an easy journey, man. Like all these fake fads and shit out there, none of them fucking work, man. You know, I'm sure you yourself or your listeners have tried these things before, and, you know, you get results for a week or two in your low carb diet, your keto diet. And then after a week, you feel shit, you feel destroyed. You're like, fuck, this is not sustainable, you know? So, creating that sort of point where you start, point where you're going to get to. And then the next step is actually having the path to get there. So having a proven system to take you from point A to point B, so that you can stay on track. Because if you try to do it yourself, and if you try to get there yourself, you just end up going in circles, or going up and down, backwards, forwards, up and down. If you don't have a clear path, then you're never going to get to where you want to get to, because you'll try something, it won't work, and you'll fall back, and then you'll try something else. And you know, basically, I guess they're my 3 points: would be awareness of where you're at, getting real with yourself; 2, having a clear destination of where you want to get to; and 3, developing a clear, simple to follow path, a proven system of how you're going to get there.
With respect to the system, I love what you've done with your Superman levels. Share what those levels are, and what the different, how you go from one level to the next.
Yeah, so basically the level 1 is creating a Superman identity, which is all about, as we said, talking about your identity, your mindset, who it is you want to become, how you want to show up, your values, beliefs, and this new version of yourself, right, that can do fucking anything. All right, so when you chuck on your PBS singlet, you fucking go into beast mode, you know, plant-based Superman mode. You can fucking dominate any challenge, right? And then number 2 is building your Superman body. So we've got a list of 13 standards, ranging from body weight to strength to metabolic conditioning to endurance and growth. So we've also got a growth element. We've got a list of sort of books out there, like The Rise of Superman, Alter Ego Effect, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, things like that, to read and expand your consciousness and your mindset. So I can share those with you as well, and you can write them down for your listeners to check out.
Yeah.
And then the next step is basically putting your body to the test, right? Because the best way for you to reach your greatest potential is to basically break free of your perceived limits. You know what I mean? So earlier this year, I did a half Ironman, which I never thought I'd complete. It's like 6 hours of fucking pain and torture. And then later this year, I'm doing a full Ironman, which is going to be like 12 hours or more of fucking pain and torture, you know? But coming out of those experiences, man, was just like the most life-changing, transformative thing in the world, you know? Like, oh my God, that's a whole other story. So step 3 is going through that challenging journey and experience where only you can actually go through it, and you're alone, and you're fucking in the trenches, you know, relying on yourself. So that's number 3, level number 3. And then level number 4 is upgrading your Superman skills. So basically taking on some Superman shit, you know, whether it's like muscle ups, handstand push-ups, backflips, pistol squats, you know, clap push-ups, like whatever sort of crazy shit you want to do. We basically go through and we develop you to be able to achieve a new set of skills, which are like all the crazy fitness dudes you see doing, right? And then level 5 is leading like a plant-based Superman legend, which is basically like I think I spoke to you before. It's like sort of learn, practice, teach. So it's the best way to solidify all of the information and all the skills and knowledge and everything you've learned and everything you've grown, all the stuff you've grown into, the man you've become. You start coaching that and teaching your family and friends and basically just sharing what it means to be a plant-based Superman and helping to positively impact the planet, you know. So the old pay it forward kind of vibe and making a massive global impact is what level 5 is all about, brother.
I love that. I love that that's the destination because, yeah, you have full embodiment at that point to where you're able to pass it forward. I can't not follow up with the Ironman thing. Tell me about that experience.
Yes, mate. Well, oh shit. Well, Where do I begin, man? Well, so it was my first Ironman, my first half Ironman. So it's a 70.3. It's a 2K swim, 90K bike, and a 21K run. And my fiance and I and Marley, we all drove up. There. I made the rookie mistake of not booking accommodation, right? And I thought, oh, it'll be fine. I'll be able to get a spot up there. And it was like packed, man. It was up in, I don't know, 4 hours north or something of Sydney. And it was packed. Couldn't find any accommodation. So I ended up sleeping in the back of the car, like a Volvo XC90, brought out a mattress in there and had a shit sleep, man. Marley was fucking tweaking out and barking at shit all night. So I probably had 4 hours sleep, before I'm doing this 6-hour fucking race. And that was my first challenge. And then I rocked up and I was getting fired up, getting ready. The swim went well. I did the swim in like 34 minutes. And then the bike, I felt pretty good on the bike. Did the bike in 3 hours and 13 or something. So I was averaging like 30 Ks, which is my goal. And then I came into the run and I was just fucking pain town, man. Like I got off and I was running. First kilometer, I felt pretty good. And then I was like, oh, hey, babe, like, I'm feeling good, smiling and shit. And then, oh, man, like a kilometer after that, my hammies started cramping, my quads started cramping. Everything was going in like excruciating pain. And my body was breaking down. And what I forgot to mention was before that, I also had an injury in my right knee, like my right iliotibial bands, ITB. So it's like the most excruciating stabbing pain you can imagine in the side of your knee. And my physio said, oh, mate, it's too late. You got to go do it now. You'll be fine. Just fucking have a go, get through it. I was like, all right, here we go. And then at about 5 kilometer mark, my knee started like just stabbing me with my iliotibial bands, one of the largest connective tissue on the outside of your quad that runs from your hip all the way down to your tibia and fibula on the outside of your knee. And so it's a massive muscle, massive tendon and ligament, sorry. And it's like, that was stabbing me in the knee from the 5th kilometer. And I had to go into this zone where like every step was excruciating. I was cramping up, my body was shutting down. And I had to go into this place like that I'll never forget, man. I was like closing my eyes as I'm running and I was picturing like Johanna and picturing the finish line and picturing my family and the team. And like I was going to this crazy zone where I was able to like overcome the pain and overcome the suffering through accessing like a fucking psycho power, man. It's hard to even put into words, I guess, but I was able to push myself to beyond my body's ability with my mind, you know what I mean? And sort of like when you hear all these endurance athletes or these crazy motherfuckers doing insane shit around the world, how they talk about accessing this zone. And that's what I really tapped into. So now I know that the Ironman's going to hurt. The next one, the full Ironman in December, is going to hurt. I know that anything else in my life that I need to do, I mean, it was like survival mode, like if you're in the fucking middle of the desert, would you be able to get back? And I'm like, I'd fucking get back. Like, no worries. Like, it makes everything else seem insignificant. And the funny part of this was that I got through the 10 kilometers. So it was one big lap, right? And I'm like, I was planning to do the whole run in like an hour and 30, hour and 40. And it took me an hour and 30, hour 40 to do 10 kilometers. And then I got back and I was like, oh, thank fuck, there's the finish line. Like I'm falling apart. And then the dude's like, you've only got one bracelet. You still got another lap to do. And I'm like, you're fucking kidding me. So I had to go do another 10K lap in the most extreme pain and suffering, torture of my life, man. And I got through it. I finished it and I couldn't walk after it, couldn't walk for a week. And then that was my journey, man. So
that's I can't even begin to imagine the mental letdown that last 10K lap must have been. It's interesting that you mentioned everybody that I've spoken to that's done endurance events have talked about hitting that threshold of like, I can't go any longer. Like I'm hitting it. This is my physical threshold, and then tapping into something else on the mental side of things. And they've all talked about vision. Robin Benincasa was somebody I had on the show not too long ago. And some of the stuff that she's done is, I can't even believe that she's done it. She's on a whole nother level. But she talked about hitting those thresholds and then having that vision of who do you want to be the next day? Like, do you want to look back on this and be the type of person who, found a way? So in other words, she was connecting to identity in the future pacing is, I guess, what they call it. But fascinating. Really fascinating.
Yeah.
So you were envisioning the finish line, and were you envisioning like the feeling that you would feel, or?
I started off getting like, so I was going through this and I was closing my eyes at times, like trying to draw on energy from the universe. Like it sounds trippy as fuck, but I'll share with you what I was actually thinking. So I was running and I was like trying to draw on energy, like summoning power from the fucking universe to keep me going, you know? That was my first attempt of like getting through it. And that was like sort of positive, like, you know, happy energy. And then after a while, that wasn't really working. So I was doing like, I came up with my own mantra, like believe, inspire, never give up. And I was just running along going, believe, inspire, never give up. Like I was just believe, believe, believe. I was like fucking chanting that shit in my head as I was taking every step.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me through like another half an hour, 40 minutes of pain. And then I went to like a really dark place of like visualizing my fiance Hannah. Hey, sorry. Visualizing my fiance Hannah and like visualizing letting her down. It's like, you're a fucking pussy. You can't do this. You're fucking weak. You know, you're gonna fucking let her down. You can let the whole team down. And I was like, yeah, fuck. And I was like, fuck you. And I was like talking to myself like, fuck you. You know, I'm gonna get there. And then I was laughing by the end of it. So I went through this whole roller coaster, and by the end of it, I was smiling, man. And I think smiling is probably a really great tip that you can use if you're going through any struggles or pain or a tough time. Just smile, man. Like, yeah, like it feels amazing, you know? And doesn't matter, like when you're smiling, physiologically, you can't feel fucking happiness and pain like at once. So I was running the finish line. There's a photo of me finishing. I can probably send you as well if you want to put on the show notes. I was saying, there's a photo of me finishing. I'm like smiling, like, yeah, like it's amazing. Like fucking loving it. Like, give me some more. Like, and the pain disappeared, man. Like, if I needed to, I could have run for another fucking 20 kilometers, man, because I became at peace with the pain and the suffering and the torture. And I pushed past that zone, and yeah, so life-changing.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I appreciate you sharing that story. That's something I think everybody should experience. One thing that I've noticed with obviously the Australian culture is the no worries, mate, no worries, mate. When I was over there a couple of years ago, everybody says it, and I was so impressed with. It's not, it's amazing how that little bit of lexicon in a culture really does affect your mindset. Everybody was just down to earth, chill, like, and a couple of, I forget exactly what it was, but we had, ran into some logistical timing, scheduling issues or whatever. And there was a lot of stress and people needed to get to where they needed to go. But, no worries. We'll work it out. I think it's so cool that a country culturally, that's sort of, is that true? Or is that just me as an American kind of looking from the outside, looking in, going,
yeah, it's kind of good and bad, I guess. Like the whole no worries, she'll be right. Like in WA, Western Australia, there's like there's a massive mining culture up in northwestern Australia, and they had to bring out a she'll be right policy, and in terms of safety, because there was dudes on fucking massive cranes and swinging fucking boulders around and dynamite and shit, and it's just like, she'll be right, mate. Like, or like. Mate, I'm just gonna send it off this cliff, man. Oh yeah, she'll be right. It's like, just like. So I guess it's good and bad. We're definitely, Australians are definitely a bit more relaxed and a bit more laid back with the no worries, she'll be right kind of attitude. But at the same time, a job that should take building a house that should take 6 months will take you 6 years, because everyone's just like, fucking no worries, mate. Yeah, it's time for a smoker, time for a beer. Yeah, okay, cool. Like, they're just, I wouldn't say everyone, but there is, the Australian, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but like Australian government workers and I don't know if it's Australians or people in general, but they're very laid back with their work ethic in certain jobs and positions, I would say.
That's interesting. How do you think the average Australian views the average American?
Good question. Good question. I can't speak for the average Australian, but I can speak for myself. And
the Superman. How does the Superman Australian view?
Well, from my time over in America, I think the Americans are very literal. Like they take things very literally. So I get myself into a lot of trouble over there because I like to take the piss, and people are like, take the piss? What do you mean? What do you mean take the piss? And I'm like, just having a laugh, mate. They're like, having a laugh? Like what? And I'm like, having a joke, man. Like, don't take yourself so serious, man. I'm just taking the piss. And they're like, what? You're what? And I guess a lot of my humor, a lot of probably Australians' humor is very sarcastic, and we like to take the piss out of each other and have a joke and say like, oh, nice shirt, mate. And it's like, oh, thanks. And really it's like, what are you wearing? So it's like, I think that's the biggest sort of cultural difference, I guess, is Australians are very, very, very sarcastic, and Americans I found are very literal. So that was something I had to make sure.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. It's always funny to see yourself through other people's eyes. How long did you model for?
19, 20-ish, I guess. 20, maybe, yeah, 20. I still did some modeling. So yeah, what's that? 9 years.
9 years. And you traveled the world doing that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was good. It was fun. I guess it was fun while I was a young lad floating around the world, having fun. Just sort of living that life. But it was very, very shallow, very false, very unfulfilling. And the fashion industry sucks. It's pretty dark, man. It's sort of like, the high life of being a model and whatever, traveling around the world, getting paid, paid good money to do not a lot. It all sounds good, but underneath that all, the actual fashion industry is really, really dark and sinister, and a lot of people exploiting, like a lot of photographers and casting agents and a lot of people in the production of things exploiting young men, young women, and basically promising the world and not really delivering. So I think that side of it I didn't really like, and I was sort of lucky that I was 20, 21, so I was quite mature and quite confident in myself and who I was, and I could say no to people and no to things. But I can imagine, there's probably heaps of stories of younger men or younger women, sort of all sorts of fucked up shit going on. So I don't know. It is what it is. And, I didn't get in any of those sort of situations, I guess, but I've heard stories. And the funniest, to switch it from a dark side of the fashion industry to a more fun and enlightening side. I guess my first sort of show was with an underwear company, and I was doing like New York Fashion Week for an underwear company, and it was legit like Zoolander, man. Like it was fucking legit like Zoolander. Like I could not believe it, eh? Like coming from Australia, being very laid back, being very down to earth, growing up down under, mate. Going over there like into a New York fashion show was legit like Zoolander. I had like all these, gay dudes running around all over me, like doing my hair and makeup, adjusting my jock strap, and like, the casting directors coming up with their big black glasses and their bald heads and their like, necktie, like, black outfits. And I've got nothing against gay dudes or anything like that. It's just it was just funny the environment that I got thrown into, and you get all these other dudes backstage, like all the other models, like doing push-ups and doing crunches and like trying to get the pump on, and I'm like sitting here going, what the fuck is going on here? Like, are these guys serious, man? Where am I? Like, so that was the funny side of it, I guess. And not taking myself too seriously, I guess, like was the other thing.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, my modeling experience is pretty much the same as yours. I've done a lot of
the same stuff, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the dad bod category.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, highly sought after dad bod model. Who's been your biggest influence?
Good question, eh? Influence on what, man?
Just in general, like growing up, was there somebody that was maybe in masculinity? Like, who did you look up to as a man, like growing up?
Good question, eh? Nothing. Like usually, all of these questions you ask, sort of, I have something that comes to mind because I know what the answer is. But this one, I can't think of necessarily a like a male like role model or a male sort of influencer that I wanted to be, you know, like I guess I think I sort of created my own. Like I can't think of any actual answer, one person.
Yeah.
I think I sort of wanted to create, I wanted to be my own person, like my own man, you know, and I think I've always sort of had something against authority, something against the status quo, something against, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like I've always wanted to be my own person and do my own thing and create my own life and create my own movement and things like that. So I guess, wasn't really one person or one real influence that I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Just bits and pieces of different people or different experiences, what have you.
Yeah, like I'm super deep into personal development and reading and learning about like successful people in different areas. So there's like a broad array of different people that I've taken bits and pieces from and implemented in my life and stuff like that to create who I am and to create the plant-based Superman. So I guess yeah, that's pretty much my answer to that one.
Yeah. On the business side of things, when did you create the brand?
2018, I think. Yeah. Yeah. End of 2017, 2018, we launched. So almost coming up to 2 years.
Okay. Did you get help on that, on creating that, or was that just sort of a download from the universe, or how did you come up with that per se?
Well, I've been floating through lots of different things. You know, I've sort of tried and failed more times than you could count. You know, so I've went through a vast array of different opportunities and different ideas and different businesses, I guess. And I guess that it all came down to creating the plant-based Superman movement, which was something that would motivate men to want to become greater, motivate men to want to be better, motivate men to want to take action. You know, so that's where the plant-based Superman term came from, because I wanted to become a plant-based Superman. I wanted to do extraordinary shit, you know, so I thought that if I wanted to do that, I just basically created a movement and a program and a system and a brand and everything that was going to be something that I wanted and that I found wasn't in the world. So that's how the plant-based Superman came about. And then I guess, yeah, it's just hard work, man. A lot of hard work.
Was there a reason why you decided to niche to men?
Yeah, because I wanted to build like a really tight knit group, you know. So when we're in the VRP coaching community, like we've got a bunch of dudes all sharing their training, sharing their struggles, sharing their sort of journey, and I think that guys are going to be more vulnerable, more open, and feel more connected with a bunch of other dudes where they feel safe and we're on the same journey. Whereas if you throw women into the mix as well, then people will be a lot more afraid of being judged, and on both ways, you know. Whereas, and then if and when we do launch a plant-based Superwoman or a plant-based Wonder Woman, then that'll be like a women's only kind of community where chicks can talk about whatever chicks talk about, dudes can talk about what dudes talk about, and we'll keep it nice and tight, you know.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about what you're up to and the different levels. Can you, before we part ways here, can you share something that somebody can do like immediately to start seeing some health benefits? Or is there a couple of moves that somebody could do to change and improve their health?
For sure. Number one would just be to do something, to move every day, to do some form of exercise every day, and preferably in the morning. So whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, going for a light jog, doing some squats, doing some push-ups, doing some yoga, whatever it is, doing something in the morning to change your state would be my number one tip. So wake up in the morning, get out the door, go do some exercise would be number one. Number two would be eating more plants and eating less animal products and just sort of seeing how you feel. And then number three, I guess, in terms of seeing results, man, I think number three would be sort of educating yourself with those list of books that I'll share with you and that I recommend sort of everyone to read, man, and start empowering yourself and taking ownership and responsibility for yourself and your time throughout the day. Because the truth is, we've all got the same amount of time in the day, and the only thing stopping you or holding you back is yourself. So you just got to just fucking take action and get shit done, man. Stop fucking around.
So that's a good note to end on. If somebody's interested in hearing more about what you're doing in the Superman, plant-based Superman model, where can they go? How can they find you?
Yeah, man, just search up Plant-Based Superman. Probably you can Google me, Plant-Based Superman. You can Google, Instagram's good as well. I do content on Instagram and also Facebook as well. And if you do want to reach out, if you do want to hit me up, man, I'm very open. I'm happy to share with you some of my time and sort of go through exactly where you're at. So just hit me up and I'll be happy to help.
Good stuff. And I'll, of course, include your contact info in the show notes on my website, pkexperience.com. So, Emmett, really appreciate it, man. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and some of your crazy stories. Appreciate it. And I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better, and we're doing some work together as well.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, you've committed to locking into the Plant-Based Superman journey. So I'm sure your listeners will be seeing your transformation coming out soon.
That's yes, 100%.
Hey!
All right, brother. Appreciate it.
Catch you, mate.
Have a good one.
Peace.